Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the Qalam podcast. You're listening to the series on The Sufficient Answer, the cures for spiritual sicknesses, delivered by Sheikh Mikael Smith. In this series, Sheikh Mikael will be covering a beautiful book authored by Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala titled Al-Jawab al-Kafi, in which he not only addresses the very common yet extremely difficult issues of spirituality, but he also addresses the philosophical crises that people suffer through. Sheikh Mikael will lead us through this book and bring forth very beautiful and beneficial discussions. So listen in, share with family and friends, and if you are benefiting from Qalam and everything that we provide here at the podcast and beyond, then please be a part of this solution, be a part of this project of educating all of humanity by going to supportqalam.com, support Qalam yourself, and also share the link with family and friends. And now on to the lesson.
Okay. Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه اللهم إنا نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك وحب عمل يقربنا إلى حبك يا رب العالمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, how's everyone doing today? Good, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Our brother came through with the shy, alhamdulillah. Allah for barakah in your risk, inshallah ta'ala. Before we begin, we make just a short dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put barakah and blessings in whatever we learn. And make it a means of nur and light for our hearts and a means of guidance for us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah. Okay, so alhamdulillah, we're going through Imam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi rahimahullah Jawab al-Kafi, and we know the basic premise of the book. The premise is based on a person asking Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, how should a person get out of a sin when they're stuck in a sin and they know they're stuck in it and they know it will destroy them? How do they get out of that sin? And Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi has dropped so many gems on us right now, it would be impossible for me to kind of summarize those. But the very last thing that Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, he reminded us that first and foremost you have to remember that the primary thing, يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَعْلَمْ, the necessary thing that we have to understand and know is that أَنْ يَعْلَمْ أَنَّ الذُّنُوبَ وَالْمَعَاصِي تَضُرُّ أن الذنوب والمعاصي تضر ولا بد من ضررها في القلب كضرر السم في الأبدان. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, he says this to the person. He said that first and foremost you have to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this world in a way where it's darul asbab. It's the world where there's cause and effect. So he said the first thing you have to know is that the cause or the means by any good coming into your life is righteousness or bar or ihsan, al-bir. And then he says, and you also have to understand that on the aks of that, on the opposite of that, is that the primary means by which evil comes to you in your life is by ma'asi and sin and disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what he said was it is necessary for us to learn specifically how sins affect our lives. Right? This person is stuck in this sin. So he wants to let him know that once you understand the effect of that sin, then that becomes a stronger... Two? Okay, okay. Once a person understands the effect of the ma'asi, once a person understands the effect of sins, then that becomes a stronger means by which the person can refrain from that sin and thereby bring khair into their lives. So at the end of last class, he basically went through and he started to name the different things in the Quran and stories of different nations that were destroyed and punished and went through hardship based on the sins that they were doing. And then, so now as he's talking about the effects of sin, one of the things that happens with a person that knows this is when you learn the material that we're going to cover in the book, it naturally creates inside of you this desire to rid your life of those things that cause evil, and also it lowers your basic tolerance to being able to see when people are harming themselves. It's like a person who doesn't drink soda anymore. You ever been around a person who doesn't drink soda anymore? Like they see someone drinking soda and they're like, yo, chill. And you're like, bro, it's just soda. They're like, no, it's not just soda. It's like they understand they're on a whole different frequency, right? So similarly, as we start to study this, you start to become more aware of how shar, evil, and the consequences of the evil actions affects you. Now what that happens in your life, naturally, you start to want to rid yourself of those things. But also, it also brings another responsibility, which is spoken about by the Prophet ﷺ on many occasions, which is Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. See, once you know the effect of soda and sugar on a diet, then you kind of feel obliged to kind of say, hey, do you know what sugar actually does to you? Do you know what that there's a lot of, look on the back of it, you feel obliged to tell people that. So Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, what he does here is he actually brings so many ahadith that talk about the responsibility that happens after you know this material. And the responsibility of it is that you start to actually inform other people with hikmah, with wisdom, but you start to build this awareness where I gotta let my brothers and sisters know that what they're going through, the depression they're going through, the hardship they're going through, all of these things are the effect of the sins that they're living with. So that's what he's telling us. So he says here, one hadith that I want to share with you. He says, Ibn Abbas yarfa'uhu. He says, وذكر ابن أبي الدنيا من حديث ابن عباس يرفعه قال يأتي زمان يذوب فيه قلب المؤمن كما يذوب الملح في الماء قيل مما ذاك يا رسول الله قال مما يرى من المنكر لا يستطيع تغييره. Beautiful hadith. Ibn Abbas says that once the Prophet ﷺ, he said, there'll come a time, يأتي على الناس زمان, يأتي زمان يذوب قلب المؤمن. He literally says the heart of the mu'min will melt. The heart of the believer will melt. كما يذوب الملح في الماء. The same way when water is mixed with water, with salt is mixed with water, it just mixes in and it just melts away. He says the heart of the mu'min will come, there will come a time when the exact same thing happens to the heart of a believer. So the Sahaba qila mimma dhaka ya Rasulullah. They said, why would that happen? What would be the reason that the heart of the believer just melts? What time are they living in? What is the reason? And the Rasul ﷺ, he says, مِمَّا يَرَى مِنَ الْمُنْكَرِ لَا يَسْتَطِيعُ تَغْيِيرُهُ. When they start to witness such munkar, disobedience of Allah, when they start to see so much of it, and they la yastati', they don't have the ability to correct it and rectify it, the heart will just melt. Like you see someone doing something that you know is destroying them. Maybe you've seen someone addicted to drugs, or maybe you've seen someone addicted to alcohol or something like that. And la yastati' tastati' taghyir. You don't have the ability to change it. How does your heart feel? It just, so Rasul said there will come a time when the heart of the mu'min will melt, feel like it's melting because it sees so much ma'asi, so much disobedience around it, but it doesn't have the ability to change it. But the thing that I find beautiful about this is that so long that we can recognize the ma'asi in society, so long that we can recognize the wrong in society, that's a bashara for us, that's a glad tiding for us. You understand what I mean by that? The ability to actually recognize soda is bad for you, right? That's a beautiful quality, even if you can't start changing people's diets, right? Even if you yourself can't even change everything about the amount of soda I drink. The point being that the awareness and the being aware of that sin is still a beautiful quality. So the Rasul ﷺ in his hadith, and he talks about how the heart should want to change those sins, but why? You have to understand the premise, what's going on here. Once we understand the effect of the ma'asi, once we understand the effect of the sins, then you naturally feel this desire to want to take that out of people's lives because you know it can bring khair for them. Because you know it can bring khair for them, inshallah. So then, he says now, he goes, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, he says now, the next thing you have to be extremely careful about is that that we often overlook the small sins. We often overlook what we consider small sins. And he narrates وفي حلية لأبي نعيم عن حذيفة أنه قيل له في يوم واحد تركت بنو إسرائيل دينهم؟ قال لا، ولكنهم كانوا إذا أمروا بشيء تركوه، وإذا نهوا عن شيء ركبوه حتى انسلخوا عن دينهم كما ينسلخ الرجل من قميصه. So what he's talking about now, he's talking about the small sins. Because he wants us to understand the effect of sins in general. But sometimes we immediately think, well, that must be the kaba'ir, the major sins. And what he wants to make us aware of at this point is that no, be very careful. Because it's the very small sins that actually are the most destructive. Because you're not aware of them. Because you're not conscious of them, they are the ones that actually have the biggest impact on you. The major sin, as soon as you do it, what are you doing? Astaghfirullah, man. Astaghfirullah. How did I end up doing that? How did I end up doing that? Astaghfirullah. But the small sin, you're like, Mashi, yeah, it's nothing. Right? It's not a big deal. So he says something here. Abu Nu'aym, in his book Hilya, he narrates from Hudayfa radiallahu anhu. قيل له في يوم واحد تركت بني إسرائيل دينهم. So we know in the Quran, it talks a lot about how the children of Israel, Bani Israel, left the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and completely left their deen. So someone asked him, he said, was it in يوم واحد تركت دينهم? Was it just in one day, they woke up one day and they left the deen? So Hudayfa radiallahu anhu, he says, قال لا. He says, no. ولكن, rather what happened? كانوا إذا أمروا بشيء, when they were ordered to do something, تركوه, they left it. وإذا نهوا عن شيء, when they were prohibited from something, ركبوه, they did it. حتى انسلخ. Now, what he says it, انسلخ, until they slowly crept out of their religion, the same way a person slowly takes off their shirt. You know, you don't just rip off your shirt like, Superman, right? Except you're Adil, right? You don't just come home, right? No, how do you come out of your shirt? You slowly take it off, right? So he says here, the same way that a person slowly takes off their qamis is the same way a person slowly starts to leave the deen. And it's not in one moment. It's not in one moment. وَمِنْ هَا هُنَا قَالَ بَعْضَ الصَّدَفِ. He says at this point, he wants to point out, قَالَ بَعْضَ الصَّدَفِ. Some of the early Muslims used to say, Al-Ma'asi Baridul Kufr. Ma'asi Baridul Kufr. You know Barid, right? Like the mailman, right? So the saying is, Al-Ma'asi Baridul Kufr. That the sins are like the postcards of kufr. You know what I mean by that? Like, the ma'asi are the sins. You don't wake up one day and just, I'm out of the deen. It just starts off really slow and gradual. Al-ma'asi baridul kufr. And then he says, Kama an al-kubla baridul jama'. Just like one kiss is barid of zina. Right? You see the analogy he's giving. He says the same way one ma'asi is barid of the kufr, the same way one kiss is barid of the zina. You don't just wake up right there like, what happened? No, it was a gradual thing. وَالنَّذَرْ baridul ishq. And your nather, you're looking at haram, is the barid of infatuation. Like you slowly got to that point. And that's what he's highlighting here. So Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, he's letting us know, he's saying, don't consider a small sin small because of the effect that it has in the grand scheme of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And hence he says, قال Imam Ahmed رحمه الله حدثنا الوليد قال سمعت أوزعي يقول سمعت بلال بن سعد يقول لا تنظر إلى صغر الخطيئة ولكن انظر إلى من عصيته. Subhanallah. Imam Ahmed narrates a saying where he says, لا تنظر إلى صغر الخطيئة. Don't look at how small the sin is. ولكن انظر إلى من عصيته. But rather look at the one who you're disobeying. You know, like, subhanAllah, we used the example of fear of Allah last week with mom, right? Like the fear of Allah is like the fear of disobeying mom and upsetting mom. Like, regardless of how small the thing is that mom tells you to do, you don't say like, Mom, it was a small thing. you're looking at her. Like, no, she just wanted sugar in the tea. No, something small. And you leave it out, and she's like, what happened? And you hurt her heart like that. So Imam Ahmed is narrating a narration for us that don't get so preoccupied with looking at the sin. That this is a small sin, this is a big sin. لا تنظر إلى صغر الخطيئة. Don't look at the size of the crime, but rather look at the one who you're disobeying. And what is the reason for this? Here's the hadith in Jami' Tirmidhi. Abu Hurairah narrates. This is a very important hadith to kind of summarize how this gradual effect hits us. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن المؤمن إذا أذنب ذنبا نقطت في قلبي نقطة سوداء. Talking about the gradual effect of sin. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, when a believer disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, dhanban, one dhanb, then there's a black spot that comes on the heart. فَإِذَا تَابَ. Now if this person realizes, now a person who's like really aware of like maybe their caloric intake, their sugar intake, that one drink of soda, they're conscious of it. Like, yo, I had soda this week. Me and you, we're like, yo, I don't know how many sodas I had. But that dude's like, yo, I had soda this week. Like, oh my God. Like, that's really bad. He's aware that the sensitivity level is very sensitive. Now we become desensitized to sugar. It's no big deal. Like, yo, how much sugar is in this, yo? We're good, right?
Yeah.
That's how you're supposed to drink it, right? Exactly. Huh? No, it's great, bro. It's great. It's all good, yo. So, إِنَّ الْمُؤْمِنِ إِذَا أَذْنَبَ ذَنْبًا. The mu'min, when they commit that one dhanb, there's an effect of that on the heart. فَإِذَا تَابَ وَنَزَعَ وَاسْتَغْفَرَ سَقَلَ قَلْبُهُ. When the person does tawbah, they realize that, right? They had that one soda, so they hit the gym that night. They're in there, doing their yoga or whatever, extra time to burn that off. The effect of it is gone. So the Rasul ﷺ says, when they taba, وَنَزَعَ, then the person does tawbah and backs off, like astaghfirullah, then the heart becomes clean. It becomes back to its normal state. وَإِنْ زَادَ زَادَتْ. The hadith goes, no, but now, if the person now doesn't do tawbah, doesn't realize the effect of that sin, and zadat, again, zadat, darkness of the heart, hatta ta'lu qalbahu, until the heart is completely covered. Completely covered. And this is why he's saying, what did he say? Al-ma'asi baridul kufr. That ma'asi are like the postcards, the invitations of kufr. The invitations of kufr. SubhanAllah. فذلك ران الذي ذكره الله عز وجل كلا بل ران على قلوب ما كانوا يكسبون. He says, Rasul ﷺ says, this is the rust of the heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to is كلا بل ران على قلوب ما كانوا يكسبون. So what are we saying here? Let's kind of summarize where we are in the book. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi is like, listen, you have to understand the effects of sins. If you don't understand the effects of sins, you won't refrain from sins because you won't know how it harms you. So now I'm going to teach you the effects of that. Then he says, first thing you need to understand is whether small or large, the sin will have an effect. The sin will have an effect. And in fact, here's the deal. In fact, the smaller sin many times can have more of a dangerous effect than the major sin because you sleep on it. Because you sleep on it. The major sin, right away, we're like, yo, astaghfirullah. You go to the masjid, you drop something in the sadaqah box. You know what I'm saying, right? That's why the sadaqah box gets so full. Everybody runs straight to right when they do something, they run straight to the sadaqah box. You put something in here, a little extra. Right? And mashallah, we should do that, right? That's why the sadaqah box gets so full so quick, right? So when we do that major sin, we run to that sadaqah box and we drop something in there. Right? But with the small sin, we're like, yeah, it's not a big deal. But slowly now, progressively, that heart becomes sealed. And you lose an awareness of how that a sin affects you. So now, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi moves forward now. And he says, now, here's one more thing before we go to the next part. He says, وَهَا هُنَا نُكْتَةٍ دَقِيقَةٍ يَغْلِطُ فِيهَا النَّاسِ فِي أَمْرِ الذَّنْبِ وَهِيَ أَنَّهُمْ لَا يَرَوْنَ تَأْثِيرُهُ فِي الْحَالِ وقد يتأخر تأثيره فينسى ويظن العبد أنه لا يغير بعد ذلك وأن الأمر ليس كذلك. Okay, so the whole premise of our book up till now is that sins will affect your life. Sins will affect your state of mind, the state of heart, and everything. So what he says is, there's something you got to pay attention to, which is you don't always see the effect of the sin right away. So you do a sin, and everything's gravy, as they say, right? Everything's good. Nothing changed. Nothing fell on me, nothing hit me. Car's driving fine. Mom's not saying nothing. Husband, everyone's cool. So you're like, oh, cool. That's a sign of I'm okay. But he says, be careful. This is important. He's like, you have to understand that just because you don't see the effect right now doesn't mean the effect is not going to come. So he says, many people. What was that? Is that Qalam? Okay. He said, many people get confused of that. And he said, وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ مَاذَا أَحْلَكَ هَذِهِ النُّكْتَةَ مِنَ الْخَلْقِ وَكَمْ أَزَالَتْ مِنَ النِّعْمَةِ وَكَمْ جَلَبَتْ مِنْ نِقْمَةِ. He says, how many people have lost so many blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they missed this point, which is just because the effect of the sin doesn't happen right away, don't think that the sin doesn't have an effect. It has an effect, even if it comes later. Even if it comes later. So, and he gives some examples of that. I'm not going to read all of those examples because I just want to move forward, inshaAllah ta'ala. One example? Nah, inshaAllah. Of course. For you, sister? It's my wife. Yeah, you know that, bro. So he gives an example here. One of the examples he gives here is, he says, وذكر عبد الله بن أحمد في كتاب الزهد لأبيه عن محمد بن سيرين أنه لما ركبه الدين اغتم لذلك فقال إني لأعرف هذا الغم بذنب أصبت منذ 40 سنة. He says, listen, thank you for asking me to do this actually. Muhammad ibn Sirin, one of the Jalil Tabi'is, he says, أنه ركبه الدين اغتم لذلك. He got in debt. He got in debt one time for whatever reason. And as an effect of that debt on him, he was really depressed about it because he has to pay off his debt. It's bothering him. He's constantly thinking about it, so on and so forth. So he says, أنه لما ركبه الدين اغتم لذلك. He got very sad. He got very sad from that. فقال إني لأعرف هذا الغم. He says, I know this gham, this like sadness and depression and worry that I'm experiencing right now. بِذَنْبٍ is because of a dhanb. أَصَبْتُهُ مُنْدَ 40 سَنَةً. From a sin that I did 40 years back. Like this is his level. He's like, I realize that what I'm feeling right now is from a dhanb that I did 40 years back. Now what I would say, brothers and sisters, is to stop the effect of the dhanb is tawbah. Remember, tawbah is that. The problem is the small sins, we don't do tawbah for them. We don't even consider it, right? We don't do tawbah for them. So always, and here's the deal, remember this. The believer goes through hardship so that they can meet Allah clean. You got to understand this. This is very important. Why does the believer go through hardship? What do we say when someone's sick? Tuhur, la ba'sa. La ba'sa tuhur, right? Like he's sick, and you're like, la ba'sa tuhur. Like, man, I'm sick, bro. What do you mean la ba'sa? Right? La ba'sa in the long run. Meaning you're going through this tahara right now, purification, so that you can meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clean. So understand that he's realizing that this gham from this debt, this one moment of depression and stress, was because of a sin I did 40 years back. SubhanAllah, Allah gives tawfiq. Jazakallahu khair. Okay, alright, so now the author starts to get more specific. Up until now we've been talking, what are the effects of sin? What are the effects of sin? What are the effects of sin? And he's been teasing us with it. But now he's going to get a bit specific. So what he does first, guys, is give us the general effect of all sins. But then what he does after is go through specific sins. What does looking at haram do? What does zina do? What does ghiba do to you? Like specific sins, what do they actually do to you? Right now he's going to be very general about how sins and ma'asi affect all of us. You guys ready, inshaAllah? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Section 13. He says, آثار المعاصي المضرة بالقلب. وللمعاصي من آثار القبيحة مذمومة المضرة بالقلب والبدن في الدنيا والآخرة. He says, understand that sins have an effect that is evil, قبيحة, آثار المذمومة, a very blameworthy, evil effect on you, on your qalb and on your badan, on your body and on your spirit, your heart, your soul. في الدنيا والآخرة. لا يعلمه إلا الله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the true extent of it. وَمِنْهَا. And here are some of them. وَمِنْهَا حِرْمَانُ الْعِلْمِ. First thing, you'll be deprived of knowledge. So here at Qalam, students of knowledge, many of you in here, the nur of the knowledge will not come to the heart because of sins. فَإِنَّ الْعِلْمِ نُور. Because knowledge is a type of light. Okay, listen to this, guys. Listen to this. Our eyes, they need light to see. Right? Our eyes need light to see. And I talked about basar and basira before. You guys remember that conversation? That the basar is the physical sight and the basira is the inner sight. And the light for the basira is what? Revelation, knowledge of Allah. Like if there's darkness, our eyes won't see. And if there's no revelation or knowledge from God, because epistemologically that's a source of knowledge, right? Is everyone with me? Everyone with me? From the epistemological perspective, as believers, we understand there's another source of knowledge, which is my sensory perception, my intellect, and revelation. Right? And khabar sadiq, and news that is related to us as well. But revelation is a source of knowledge. Now that's revelation is a source of knowledge. It's a light for the basira. The same way that though light is enlightened, it makes things visible for the basar, for the physical sight. So understand that. So what does he say here? فَإِنَّ الْعِلْمِ نُورٌ. Knowledge is light. Knowledge is light that Allah places in the heart. وَالْمَعَاصِي تُطْفِئُ ذَلِكَ النُّورِ. And sins will extinguish that light. It will put it out. Now listen to this. وَلَمَّا جَلَسَ إِمَامْ شَافِي بَيْنِ يَدِ الْمَالِكِ. One day Imam Shafi, the great Imam Shafi, he sat down in front of Malik. Imam Malik. وَقَرَأَ عَلَيْهِ. He started to recite his knowledge to him and read. أَعْجَبَهُ مَا رَآهُ. Imam Malik's like, oh, Shab, Zaki. He's like, this young man's smart. This young man has got his knowledge down. So he says, مَا أَرَى مِنْ وُفُورِ فَطْنِهِ. He goes, this man is a sharp intellect. Imam Malik's old by now. And Imam Shafi's young, quick, you know? And he says, وَكَمَالِ فَحْمِهِ. He could understand very well. فَقَالَ. Listen to what Imam Malik said. إِنِّي أَرَىٰ أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَلْقَى عَلَىٰ قَلْبِكَ نُورًا. He says, young man, I see Allah has placed some عَلَىٰ قَلْبِكَ نُور. Allah has placed some nur on your heart. فَلَا تُطْفِئُهُ بِظُلْمَةِ الْمَعْصِيَةِ. Don't put out that light by the darkness of sins. Be careful. Allah has placed that in you naturally. Just be careful to preserve it. All you have to do is preserve it. And Allah will put that knowledge inside of you. And there's a very well-known poem. شَكَوْتُ إِلَى وَكِي سُوءَ حِفْدِي فَأَرْشَدَنِي إِلَى تَرْكِ الْمَعَاصِي وَأَخْبَرَنِي بِأَنَّ الْعِلْمَ نُورًا وَنُورُ اللَّهِ لَا يُهْدَى إِلَى عَاصِي. It's been narrated a few different ways. But the poem is that Imam Shafi says that one day I went to my teacher, Waqir. And he says, so Imam Shafi rahimahullah had like a photographic memory. He used to memorize so well that his teacher would have to cover up a side of the page that he was learning, because if he just looked at it, he'd memorize it out of order. So they had to cover the side of the page up so he doesn't glance at it, because then it would throw off his order. That's how strong his memory was. But one day he comes to class, and he's like struggling. And he's like, what's that? I got a problem. He's like, what's up? I can't learn. He said, what'd you do on your way here to school? And Imam Shafi said, oh, there was a sister walking, and the wind blew up her thing a bit. And he's like, and I looked. We talking this much, bro. Those listening on podcasts, I'm just showing my knee right now. Right. He's like, I saw that. He's like, that's it right now. Just do Tawbah. Just do Tawbah. You good. Do Tawbah. But he was able to catch it. He knows what it was. He's like, oh, yeah. He caught it. So the poem is, he's like, I went to Waqi' and told him my memory was messed up. So he said, whoa, there must have been a sin you were doing. Inna al-ilm nur. Ilm is knowledge. It won't come in to your heart. Now you may say, wait, I know a lot of smart people that are sinners. Yeah, that's what you're all thinking right now. Hold on, man, I know this dude. It sounds good, Sheikh, but I know a lot of people that are really hella smart. Like Stephen Hawking, man. Like, come on, man. Like, I didn't say smart. I said knowledge. Ilm. I said ilm. Ilm is different than just information. Ilm is that which gets you closer to your purpose, which is knowing Allah. You can have a lot of book smarts about all types of things. That's just information of the world, information of what's around you. That's not what we're referring to. We're talking about knowledge about your purpose of creation and how to achieve that purpose. That's ilm. That's true knowledge. And that's the thing that sins blocks. Not SATs or whatever, GPA, whatever. No, that's not what we're talking about. وَمِنْهَا, number two. Perfect timing, bro. Number two, what is the second effect of ma'asi? Hirman rizq. That it will deprive one of their sustenance, their rizq. What's rizq? Like what you're supposed to get. You know, like your yearly salary. You know what I mean? But we'll talk about it in more detail. He says, Hirman rizq. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, like, yo, this hadith for me is really powerful. Because when you're putting in overtime and you're trying to stack up a few extra $1,000, you know, a few extra stacks, as my man said, Prophet, a few extra stacks, you're working all hard and you remember this hadith, subhanallah. The hadith is, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَا يُحْرَمُ بِالذَّنْبِ مَا يُصِيبُهُ إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَا يُحْرَمُ الرِّزْقِ بِالذَّنْبِ يُصِيبُهُ عفوا إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَا يُحْرَمُ الرِّزْقِ بِالذَّنْبِ يُصِيبُهُ. A person will be deprived of some of their rizq because of sins that they are committing. Now, he explains, وَقَدْ تَقَدَّمَ, and this hadith had come before, but I didn't narrate it because I wanted to read it at this time. He says, كَمَا تَرَى أَنَّ تَقْوَى اللَّهِ مَجْلَبَ لِلرِّزْقِ. Taqwa of Allah will bring more risk to you. فَتَرْقَ التَّقْوَى, leaving taqwa or a relationship with Allah will bring poverty to you. Now, here, what I just want to highlight here, and we're going to talk about it in more detail, is that you may have, like, again, y'all thinking like, wait, hold on. I know some really, really rich people that don't obey Allah at all. At all. So what are you saying? What are you saying? Does that risk bring them satisfaction? It could, it may not though. We know some people that are sitting on millions that are not happy. They have it, but it doesn't bring that contentment. Where on the other hand, you know an uncle, you know a Ammi who's like, he just has enough. He just has one aish. One aish, that's it. But he's good. He's good. So look at it from the why we seek out wealth. And how many people are actually getting out of the wealth what they sought from it. Right? Allah knows best. Allah knows best. So وَمِنْهَا. Number three. وحشة يجدها العاصي في قلبه بينه وبين الله لا توازنها ولا تقاربها لذة أصلا ولو اجتمعت له لذات الدنيا بأسرها لم تفي بتلك الوحشة وهذا أمر لا يحس به إلا من في قلبه حياة. The word wahsha means for something to be strange or a sense of estrangement. You know when you first get married, depending on how you did it, there may be this first estrangement. You don't really know each other too well, right? You're not too, the first time you meet someone, there's this sense, that awkward silence, we talk about, it's like weird, right? But when you know anyone, bro, yo, Isa, anyone, Hey, I'm not calling you out, bro. You're turning mad red right now, bro.
Keeping it personal.
Yeah. No, and anyone we meet, that first time you're sitting with them, you don't know them well, there's this kind of awkward feeling around them. But after you know someone for a very long time, right, and you've established some rapport and being comfortable with them, like, you could just sit with them for hours and nobody say nothing. Brothers do that all the time. We could just chill. You don't gotta say nothing. We just chill and drink coffee in the box. You guys know what I'm talking about, the box? Okay, forget it. Whatever. We're just okay like that. So this concept is called Washa. Washa is this feeling where I don't feel comfortable with someone or in some setting. Estrangement. The opposite of that is called Unsiya. And Unsiya is this familiarity, this comfortable feeling. Where I'm with someone, I just feel completely comfortable. That's called Unsiya. The opposite of which is estrangement or Washa. So what's the third? Which one are we on? Number 3, Sah? The third effect of sin is you will find a sense of estrangement between the sinner, their heart, and between Allah. You don't feel at peace with Allah. You don't feel comfortable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You feel as if you're with someone who you're not really close to. Nah? Takalluf? Like you have to force it out. It's not natural. Do you understand this? What he's saying? Because it's extremely powerful. It's extremely, many times when you're on your deen, we say, you feel good with Allah. You know what I'm saying? You feel good. You're like, Ya Allah, alhamdulillah. You feel tight. You know what I'm saying? But when you've been away and you've been disobeying, you feel distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And it feels awkward. You feel far. So look what he says. He says, you find this wahsha in your heart. Now here's the deal. Some of us may be like, Shaykh, what are you talking about? What is this wahsha in my heart? What are you talking about feeling close to Allah? I'm going to get there. Just hold on. He says, you will feel this estrangement in your heart. He says, لا توازنه ولا تقاربه لذات الدنيا. He's like, you'll feel this strange estrangement in your heart that no comfort in the world, no pleasure, no luxury, no food, no car, no any type of joy can balance that feeling of estrangement that you feel. That distance that you feel, nothing you do can fill that gap of feeling separated away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, but listen, he says, if you were to gather all of the luxuries of the world, all of them, they would not take away that feeling of estrangement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهَذَا أَمْرٌ. Now here's the problem. This is something only those whose hearts are alive actually feel. That's the dangerous thing. Like some of us are like, what are you even talking about? I don't have moments where I feel close to Allah. And that's because you haven't at all started to build that relationship yet. But once you start to build that relationship, the moment you don't talk for a minute, you start to feel like, wait, I haven't talked to Allah. I haven't connected. So he says, وَهَذَا أَمْرٌ لَا يَحِسُّ بِهِ إِلَّا مَنْ فِي قَلْبِ حَيَاةٍ. So you know what our mashayikh used to strive to do? Once you taste that closeness to Allah one time, it's like a drug, you need it. Once you taste that closeness one time, a moment of just like I'm here with Allah, if you taste it one time, wallahi, then you'll always search for it. You'll always search for it. Maybe it hit you in one sajda. Maybe one moment you were doing tasbih. Maybe one moment you were making dua and you felt that closeness. That is just you and Allah. Our mashayikh, they just want you to taste that one time. Because once you get one hit, you're addicted. It's the same logic in the streets. Same logic. It's the same logic. It's the same exact logic. Once you get one taste, they know. And that's how, if you're from, anywhere from, those areas, right? They know. We don't have to convince you. Once you taste it one time, you're done. Even if it's accidental. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Same way with this. If you taste the heart's connection with Allah one time, you're hooked. You're hooked. It's beautiful. So he says, He says, وَمَا لِجَرْحٍ بِمَيِّةِ الْإِيلَامِ. He's like, a dead person doesn't, you cut dead skin, there's no feeling. So he says when the heart is not alive, it doesn't feel it. Same way if you cut a dead person's body, they don't feel anything. فَلَوْ لَمْ تَتْرَكَ الذُّنُوبِ إِلَّا حَذَرًا مِنْ وُقُوءِ تِلْكَ الْوَحْشَةِ لَكَانَ الْعَاقِلْ حَرِيًّا بِتَرْكِهَا. He says, brothers and sisters, if there's only one reason you give up sins, this would be it. Because it deprives you of that close familiarity that you have with Allah. And if you haven't felt that one night, got up one night when no one's awake, and you just pray 2 rakat to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and feel that closeness, that one moment. He's like, if there was no other effect of sin other than this, that's enough, yo, I'm good. That's enough, I'm good. وَشَكَى رَجُلْ إِلَى بَعْضِ الْعَارِفِينَ. One person complained to one of the scholars about Washa يَجِدُهَا فِي نَفْسِهِ, this feeling of estrangement that they felt in their heart. And he said to him, إِذَا كُنْتَ قَدْ أَوْحَشْتَكَ الذُّنُوبُ فَدَعْهَا إِذَا شِئْتَ وَاسْتَأْنَسْ. He's like, if your sins have made you estranged from Allah, فَدَعْهَا, leave them. And then you get close to Allah. فَدَعْهَا, just leave it. You'll get close back to Allah. SubhanAllah. So he says, وَلَيْسَ عَلَى الْقَلْبِ أَمُرْ مِنْ وَحْشٍ. There's nothing more sour than being disconnected from Allah. لَيْسَ عَلَى الْقَلْبِ أَمُرُّ مِنْ وَحْشَةِ الدَّمِ. There's nothing more sour than being disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب? You know, this reminds me. You know, a lot of times, sisters, in the time of, in their cycle, in the month when they can't read Quran and pray and all of these things, they feel as if I'm disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at what we're studying, that's not the case. That's from shaitan. That's not the case. That feeling is from shaitan. In fact, those are moments when you could be the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this brother over here who's been praying constantly, his mind ain't even there. His mind isn't even there. And you know one of the beautiful things? When you're stopped from doing something, what does it also happen? What does it also make you do? You miss it. This brother here just keep praying, and you're like, man, I miss it. I want to pray right now. And Allah sees that desire to want, and I can't, and it builds that shauq and desire for it as well. So don't understand that this unsiyah is here. This connection is here. And so long that you're obeying Allah, that's the connection. That's the connection. وَمِنْهَا. You know, like, you ever go shopping for someone? Someone ever shop for you and bring a gift that they like? Brothers be doing this all the time. You go buy a gift for your mom or someone, and she's like, I didn't want an Apple phone. Like, I didn't want an Apple Watch. Like, I thought you would like it. It's like, that's what you want. That's not what I want. So the goal is to look at what your beloved wants, not to look at what you want. We always, some brothers do this all the time. You go shopping, like, what should I get her? I would like this. No, it's not about what you would like. It's about what your beloved wants. It's about what your beloved loves. It's about what would make your beloved happy. Right? So if I like soda, my beloved should buy me soda, right? I'm just messing around. I don't drink soda. I'm good. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Well, man, occasionally.
The Big Red comes your way, you gotta.
Not Big Red, nah, yo. I need like Canada Dry or something. Yeah, man. Alright, sorry. We can do this after. وَمِنْهَا. So the point being is that, again, this is a very, very important point. That word wahsha, if you haven't felt that yet, we got to talk about that. If you haven't felt that unsiyah with Allah yet, we got to get you to taste that one time. Because once you taste it, you're going to be hooked. And that's it. You're done. Okay, now number 4, correct? Yeah. Number 4. وَمِنْهَا. نعم. وَمِنْهَا. ومنها الوحشة التي تحصل بينه وبين الناس ولا سيما أهل الخير منهم. He goes, look, the sin will separate you from Allah. You will get this feeling of estrangement from Allah, detachment from Allah. But he says that the fourth thing is, it will also create a detachment between you and people as well. You and people as well. تحصل بينه وبين الناس. The sin will also detach you or create a feeling of estrangement between you and other people. And he says, لا سيما أهل الخير, especially good people. Especially people of righteousness. Like, nah man, we ain't going to the halakha, I'm good right now. I don't want to go over there right now. You want to stay away from those gatherings. فإنه يجد وحش بينه وبينهم. He'll find an estrangement between him and those good people, or her and those good people. وَكُلَّمَا قُوِيَتْ تِلْكَ الْوَحْشَةِ بَعُدَ مِنْهُ. The more that estrangement gets strong, the further you stay away from those righteous gatherings. The further you stay away from those righteous gatherings. Nah, I don't want to go over there. There's too much going on over there. وَمِنْ مَجَالَسَتِهِمْ. And from sitting in their company. One of the beautiful signs that Allah wishes khair for you is the tawfiq to sit in righteous gatherings. Like, one of the signs that Allah wants good for you is that your heart feels comfortable in gatherings where the name of Allah is recited, the name of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is recited, the talk of Jannah is recited, talk about Jahannam is recited, all these things being mentioned, and you're present. That is a beautiful sign for your heart. And one of the signs that the sins are negatively affecting you is when you get into that gathering, you start to feel claustrophobic. You know what I'm saying, right? I know you felt it before. After a while of sin, you sit in a gathering like this, like, dude, you're talking about sin too much, man. It's hot up in here. Woo! Let me go get some air. People be doing that during halakha. Let me get out. Let me breathe a bit. Okay, come back. Now I can breathe with y'all. So the point being is that this is one of the effects, that you find yourself not wanting to be around righteous people at all. وَحُرِمَ بَرَكَةِ الْإِنْتِفَاعَ بِهِمْ. Next thing, you won't benefit from being with them. Like, you'll be with them, but you're like, huh? You won't benefit from them. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, when you're with righteous people, there's a benefit there. But because this feeling has been placed in you from the sins, even when you're with them, you kind of don't benefit from them. It's like, oh, why do I have to be here type feeling. وَقَرَّبَ مِنْ حِزْبِ الشَّيْطَانِ. But the shayateen, you feel comfortable over there. Like, I'm going to go back chill with whatever his name is. I feel more comfortable in that gathering. بِقَدْرِ مَا بَعُدَ مِنْ حِزْبِ الرَّحْمَنِ. The more you separate from the party of Allah, the more you want to be closer to the party of the shayateen. وَتَقْوَ هَذِهِ الْوَحْشَةِ حَتَّى تَسْتَحْكَمْ. Here's the problem. He says, this estrangement from people will keep growing and growing and growing until you become unmasked, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I'm done with those people. I'm done. I don't want to be around them no more. Completely. He says, وَتَقَوْ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ إِمْرَأَتِهِ. This estrangement now will come between you and your wife. وَوَلَدِهِ, you and your child. وَأَقَارِبِهِ, you and your relatives. وَبَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ نَفْسَهُ. He says, between you and your own self. You won't even be comfortable with you. You commit some sins, you don't even you look in the mirror different. After some sins, you literally look at yourself in the mirror like, dang, what did I do? What am I doing? SubhanAllah. فَتَرَاهُ مُسْتَوْحَشًا مِنْ نَفْسِهِ. This is such deep psychology here. He says you'll find this person mustawha, estranged from his own self. He doesn't even feel comfortable in his own skin. Look at this. وَقَالَ بَعْضُ السَّلَفِ إِنِّي لَأَعْصِي اللَّهِ. I disobey Allah sometimes. فَرَآ ذَلِكَ فِي خُلُقِ دَابَتِي وَإِمْرَأَتِهِ. He says sometimes I disobey Allah and I see the effect of that in the temperament of my dabba. What's his dabba? His horse. So it's like his car. He sees the effect of that animal not obeying or being compatible with him. So like the animal, he's riding an animal's like not cooperating with him. Like I rode this animal for 20 years and we rode. But all of a sudden now, it's like kicking and throwing me, this and that. He says, I disobey Allah and see the effect of that in the relationship between me and my animal, and I see the relationship between me and my wife affected by a sin. Me and my mom, me and my father, me and my husband. This is very, very interesting stuff here. Because a lot of us are suffering with issues, relationship issues. And we haven't realized this point which Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi is teaching us today, which is, look, the sins will separate you from people and create friction between you and some of the most beloved people that you have. That's what he's addressing here. Fahimtum? Sorry. Okay, it's only been about 40 minutes, so we're good, right? A little bit long. Just a few more, okay? Next, number 5. Number 5. ومنها تعسير أموره عليه فلا يتوجه لأمر إلا يجده مغلقا دونه. Subhanallah. The 5th effect of the sin on you is تعسير أمورك عليك. You'll find difficulties in everything that you're trying to do. You'll find difficulties. You guys get what I'm saying? He says, فَلَا يَتَوَجَّهْ لِأَمَرٍ. He won't try to do anything except that he يَجِدُهُ مُغْلَقًا. The door is closed, locked. He tried to do something, door doesn't open up. Metaphorically speaking, door's not open up. Every situation, man, it's not working. Man, that's not working. Man, this is not working. Al-muta'assir alayh. Or it's locked, or it's just very hard to do. Extremely difficult. وَهَذَا كَمَا أَنَّ مَنْ اتَّقَ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا مَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. He said the exact opposite. For the one who has this relationship for Allah, he finds things opening up. She finds things opening up for them. So he says the 5th one is you'll find things difficult for you. The things that are supposed to be easy for you, they become very hard for you. وَيَا اللَّهَ الْعَجَبْ كَيْفَ يَجِدُ أَبْوَابَ الْخَيْرِ وَالْمَصَالِحِ مَسْدُودَ عَنْهُ وَطَرَقَهَا مُعَسِّرَةً عَلَيْهِ وَهُوَ لَا يَعْلَمُ مِنْ أَيْنَ أَتَاهُ. He says, how does a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala realize that the doors of khair and good are closed, and he doesn't even want to knock at the door? Look at the metaphor. He says, and even knocking at the door is muta'assir for you, hard for you. How did that happen to you and you don't realize where this came from? It came from sins. And you just have to do tawbah from that. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. ومنها ظلمة يجدها في قلبه حقيقة يحس بها كما يحس بظلمة الليل البهيم إذا أدلم فتصير ظلمة معصية لقلبه كظلمة حسية لبصره. Then number 6, he says, وَمِنْهَا, the person, the 6th effect of sin is a person will find in their heart a darkness, a literal darkness, he says, حقيقة, a literal darkness in their heart, يَحِسُّ بِهَا, that they will realize and feel just the way they can sense and realize the darkness of night when it overshadows them. فَتَسِيرُ ظُلْمَةِ الْمَعَاصِي. So then the darkness of sins will cover their heart the way the darkness covers our eyes. فَإِنَّ طَاعَ نُورٍ. Obedience is light. وَالْمَعْصِيَةُ ظُلْمَةٌ. وَكُلَّمَا قَوِيَ الظُّلْمَةُ ازْدَادَ حَيْرَتُهُ. As the darkness gets more intense, her confusion gets more intense. حَيْرَتُهُ, like mentally, they get more and more confused as the darkness intensifies. وَكُلَّمَا قَوِيَ, he says, حَتَّى يَقَوْ فِي بِدْعَ وَالضَّلَالِ وَالْأَمْرِ الْمُحْلِقِ وَهُوَ لَا يَشْعُرُ. Until this person ends up way off in left field, doing all types of bid'ah and all types of sin, and they didn't even realize, how did I end up in this place? They didn't even know where it came from. كَأَعْمَى, he says, like a blind person, خَرَجَ فِي ظُلْمَةِ اللَّيْلِ, leaves in the darkness of the night, يَمْشِي, walking out by themselves, وَتَقْوَى هَذَا الظُّلْمَ حَتَّى تَدْخُلْ فِي الْعَيْنِ. Listen to this. He says the darkness, the literal darkness that comes in the heart will grow until it reaches into their eyes. And then he says, and then that will grow until it covers the face. Last week what I talked about is some sins you'll notice as people continue to doing them, you start to see the effect on their eyes. And then you start to see the effect on the face. You look at this person, you're like, SubhanAllah, everything okay? What's been going on in life? Things you see the effect of the sin. And depending on where you live and who you interact with, I said before, you see this at different levels. But the effect of the sin on the face is what he's actually talking about. فَقَالَ Abdullah ibn Abbas, we'll end here inshallah. وَقَالَ Abdullah ibn Abbas رضي الله عنه إِنَّ لِلْحَسَنَةِ ضِيَاءَ فِي الْوَجْهِ. Righteous deeds has a light to the face that it brings. وَالنُّورُ فِي الْقَلْبِ. Especially tahajjud, by the way. There are hadith that specifically talk about that the one who stands up in Qiyam and Layl in the middle of the night, a light that is on their face from that. We're not talking metaphoric, a physical light that can be seen by people from the one who stands up in Qiyam and Layl. So he says, وَسَعَةٍ فِي الرِّزْقِ. Hasanat bring a light to the face. A nur in the qalb. So difference between light and nur. وَسَعَةٍ فِي الرِّزْقِ. Expansion in their sustenance. قُوَّةٍ فِي الْبَدَنِ. You know how sometimes you feel tired all day? Even after the coffee? You know what I mean? قُوَّةٍ فِي الْبَدَنِ. He says one of the effect of sayyi'at is weakening of the body. You feel tired all the time. And one of the effects of the righteousness is قُوَّةٍ فِي الْبَدَنِ. You realize if anyone went for Hajj or Umrah, like all that walking, we don't do a fraction of that when we're back here. But I'm all like tired. But over there, I'm like moving all around, this and that, running for salah, go here, and all of a sudden you have this quwwah fil badan. And literally, you look at people back from Hajj and see how many miles they walk. My day was like, one day we did like 15 miles. Next day 14, 12, 11. Here, like I didn't do nothing, and I'm like, I'm tired today. I'm tired. All day, I'm tired. You wake up at 8 a.m., I'm tired. 11, tired. Right? No, tell me if I'm like, 11 o'clock, I'm tired. 2 o'clock, I'm tired. When are you not tired? What time of the day? Please, just tell me a time so that I know we can do something, because you're always tired. So me and one of my colleagues were like, we will never say the word tired. Me and you. Because whenever we're like, how you doing? We're like, I'm tired, yo. So we were like, we hear this too much. No more tired, yo. I don't want to hear this anymore. I'm tired. SubhanAllah. So anyways, you're tired, and then when it comes to scrolling on Facebook, 3 hours, we're good. Straight up. You start reading, you're like, you start scrolling, you're like, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. Astaghfirullah, what just happened? Right? I thought you were tired. My wife is going to really hold me to this, yo. I am digging my own ditch. I'm speaking up because I know myself. And look what he says. وَقُوَّةٍ فِي الْبَدَنِ. Hasanat bring a strength to the body. Try this. Pray Fajr, brothers, in Jama'ah if you can. Then stay and sit for Ishraq. Right? Now, some people aren't morning people, I know, but just try this, okay? The Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma barik li ummatiha fi bukuriha. Oh Allah, put barakah in the mornings of our ummah. Like the morning has a special barakah. Just try, see the energy that you have. Fajr, sit down after Fajr, do some dhikr, read some Quran, pray your 2 rak'ah ishraq, start the day. Watch what happens. See, come back next week and we'll talk about it. Whoever tried it. Come back next week in this gathering, I'm like, who tried it? What happened that day? 11 o'clock, I was knocked out at work. I didn't say wake up for tahajjud. I said Fajr, sit till Ishraq, do some dhikr, and then bust out 2 or 4 rak'ah, and then go on with your day. See the energy that you have. See the energy that you have. And the opposite, miss Fajr, wake up. How's your whole day feel after that? Like you feel weak, I didn't even wake. What did I do? What do I do today? Whole thing all messed up.
Are you saying yes, Fajr?
I didn't say miss Fajr and test what happens. We're not doing an experiment here. No? Yeah, no.
Good thing you asked that question.
I know, I didn't mean it that way. I'm saying if you miss Fajr, you will sense in yourself a type of weakness inside of you, a spiritual weakness, but it also affects physically, the body. Okay? Alright, but anyways, khair. So he says, قُوَّةَ فِي الْبَدَنِ وَمُحَبَّةَ فِي قُلُوبِ الْخَلْقِ. We didn't talk about this too much. We're going to talk about it next week. But you will also find love from the hearts of people. The righteous deeds brings you love from the hearts of people. And then he says, the sayyah have the exact opposite. What number was this?
6.
Number 7. Listen to this. And al-ma'asi tuwahinu al-qalb wal-badan. The sins will weaken the heart and the body. It makes you tired. Makes you weak. Makes you tired. Makes you weak. Amma wahnu lil-qalb fa-amr al-zahir. He says, why does the heart get weak? That's clear. Sins. Bal لا تزال توهن حتى تزيل حياته بالكلية. In fact, it gets so weak that the sins continue to weaken it until it dies. The heart. But he says, what about the body? I see a lot of like dudes and golds and everywhere, their bodies are strong. Well, what are you saying? So he says, أما وهنها للبدن فإن المؤمن قوته في القلب. He says, the mu'min, their quwwah is in their heart. Their strength lies in the heart. وَكُلَّمَا قَوِيَ قَلْبٍ قَوِيَ بَدْنٍ. As his heart gets stronger, his body gets stronger. Or her body gets stronger. وَأَمَّا فَاجِرٍ. As for the disobedient one, the one who denies Allah, فَإِنَّهُ وَإِنْ كَانَ قَوِيَ الْبَدْنِ. Even if they have a strong physical physique, فَهُوَ أَضَفَ الشَّيْءٍ عِنْدَ الْحَاجَةِ. At the time of need, they're the weakest ones. The heart is weak. The heart is, when you really need him, the dude ain't there, he ran away. Like, where everybody at? Right? I got stories for days on that one. Jahiliyyah. When you really need that person, the heart is so weak that they run away. You won't have them there. And so he's writing this at a time when Muslims had strength, okay? He's writing this at a time when Muslims were like Salahuddin. I'm talking like strong. So he goes, فَتَأَمَّلْ قُوَّةَ أَبْدَانِ الْفَارِسِ وَالْرُومِ. Because look at the strength of the Persians and the Romans. كَيْفَ خَانَتْهُمْ أَحْوَجِ مَا كَانُوا إِلَيْهِ. Look how weak they are when we come through. وَقَهْرُهُمْ أَهْلَ الْإِيمَانِ بِقُوَّةِ أَبْدَانِهِمْ. It's a different time. He says, in the people of Iman, we're all weak looking. McGregor, right? Thing, right? We don't look that big, humble, and we come through, right? Look at the strength of Iman. Strength of Iman coming through. So that's what he's talking about. He lived in a different era though, where Muslims had like real like political strength. So he's like, look how strong we are. But that speaks to our spiritual weakness too. That speaks to now our spiritual weakness and how we depend on the external strength, but the hearts don't even wake up. One person, he used to lift weights. He said, people could they can lift 250, they can squat 500, but they can't lift a 2-pound blanket off of them for Fajr. Oh, well, light point, whatever. You get my point. The point being, like, they got all this strength, but when it comes to waking up for Fajr, that blanket is too heavy. How is that blanket too heavy for you when you have so much strength? Because the qalb is weak. The qalb is weak. So, inshallah, Allah give us tawfiq, inshallah. So, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi now, brothers and sisters, this is the point where from now on, he's getting really specific on how sins affect us. Today we did how many of them? 7. And he'll continue this, inshallah, next Wednesday, inshallah. We'll continue to go through. After he talks generally, then he's actually going to start speaking about specific sins and how specific sins affect us, inshallah. That can be hard for us to listen to sometimes, but it's beneficial for us, inshallah. Any questions, inshallah? Fatima.
Yes, so my question is, as you were talking about all of these, kind of all the different effects that sins have.
Yes.
Are these specific to like sins that you've made like tawbah for, or are they still called sins? Because the human is kind of in a state of always committing sins, right? And so, are these specific to those who just never ask Allah for repentance?
So my understanding of it is that tawbah is what removes the effect of the sin. Tawbah, sincere tawbah, is what removes the effect of the sin as well. Yes. Inshallah.
This is for people who don't make tawbah.
Yeah, this is for all of us until we do make tawbah. The effect of that sin is still sitting there until you make tawbah. Another thing I wanted to highlight, one of them was like things become difficult for you. Now, don't always assume that a difficult task is because of a sin. But sometimes the difficulty in the task is a means for raf'ud darajat. The Prophet ﷺ had no sins, but how much difficulty did he face? Right? Okay? To raise that level, that status. Right? So now, here's the thing. Someone asked one of my teachers, how do you know if a difficulty is a punishment or a difficulty is a blessing? You know what he said? Your reaction to it. If the reaction is that you strive harder, you get closer to Allah. I'll give you a simple example. You stub your toe. You stub your toe. Astaghfirullah, hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata. Or is it something else? There you go, right there. That hardship, you can tell right there what that hardship was. That was a punishment. Because the effect of it was you got further away from Allah. You need to do tawbah for that. Not for that, for something that caused that. And go, look, something's causing this in my life, let me do tawbah. Something else is hard and you're like, Ya Allah, I need your help. You get closer to Allah through that. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So hardship intrinsically doesn't mean punishment. It's how you respond to it. It's how you respond to it. Inshallah. Any other questions? We covered a lot today. No questions. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for coming out. I know you had horrible weather down here lately. Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair for coming out. Inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us of all the sins that we have done knowingly and not knowingly. Ya Allah, we ask you to remove the effects of any sins that we have done. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, we ask you to cover our wrongdoings, Ya Allah, and allow us to do tawbah for whatever we have done wrong, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, we ask you to give us the barakah of what we have learned here today and make it a means for us to get closer to you, Ya Allah. We ask you to give us a taste of the lezza and the pleasure of being close to you one time, Ya Rabbil Alameen, so that there is nothing more beloved to us than being close to you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.